Absolutely. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for the introduction. And it's a pleasure to be here at the Industrial Cyber Days. We at Salvador Technologies are committed to ensuring that cyber attacks never lead to operational disruption. And our solution is designed specifically for OT and ICS environments, delivering comprehensive resilience platform that integrates real-time monitoring, secure backup, instant recovery, and full asset control. And we enable organizations to maintain operational continuity, even in the face of advanced cyber incidents.
Perfect. So thank you very much, Amit. So before we dive into the sort of technical stuff, let's zoom out a little, get some context. So over the past year or two, we've seen cyber resilience as a term, and again, that's defined a little different for everyone, but we've seen cyber resilience really shift from being a tactical concern to being a boardroom level priority, particularly in OT heavy sectors like manufacturing. So the question is no longer will we be attacked or when, but it's will we be able to stay up and running and continue producing and servicing our clients and customers. So interestingly enough, at TakePoint, we've done some internal research exercises mapping some of the NIST cybersecurity framework to really try and understand where the focus and budget is spent, and mapping that back to the NIST model, which I'm sure everybody here is quite familiar with: identify, protect, detect, recover, respond, and more recently, govern. And what we found was quite eye-opening, not surprising, but so we asked security teams to map where they're focusing their resources on the budgets, the attention, and the vast majority was still very much focused on that identify, protect, and detect, and a lot less was going towards respond, recover in particular. And in spite of those facts, we're still seeing these functions are absolutely critical, or even maybe more so when looking at when a real world incident occurs. So that in mind, Amit, so what sort of significant shifts have you seen over the past year or two that sort of have elevated this cyber resilience? We talk about that respond and recover to the top of the agenda for in OT environments, particularly for manufacturing.
Thanks, Jonathan. Indeed, over the past year, we've witnessed a convergence of factors that have pushed cyber resilience to the front of OT environments, especially in manufacturing. First, the increasing connectivity of OT assets due to digital transformation initiatives. That means that vulnerabilities, once they were isolated in legacy systems, are now exposed to a broader network. Now, this exposure has been amplified by the rise in sophisticated cyber threats, specifically targeting industrial operations. We can mention previous year attacks like Triton, Colonial Pipeline, and more recent attacks on water treatment facilities. This all highlights the critical need for resilience in OT and ICS. Secondly, regulatory pressure is evolving. We have seen a stronger push from both governments and industry regulators for compliance with cybersecurity frameworks that now are being updated to the specific architectures and specific risks of OT and critical infrastructure. So manufacturers now understand that cyber resilience is not just about prevention and detection. It's about ensuring safety and continuity even during an attack. In extreme cases, and when it comes to critical assets, even when your network is down. So this shift is driving organizations to rethink their approach to security from the ground up.
Right. So it makes a lot of sense. And I guess I want to focus or reflect on some of the broad themes that we're seeing in the field. So there's clearly a growing urgency around cyber visibility resilience and the need to align IT and OT, particularly when incidents strike. So leaders know the stakes are high, but many of them are still struggling to prioritize and make progress in environments that weren't really designed with security in mind. Something that's come up a lot already during the discussions today. And I mean, you really have a front row seat to what's keeping industrial cyber leaders up at night. So what recurring concerns are you hearing from those companies, the manufacturing companies and OT cyber leaders today? And I guess what critical pain points are they most focused on solving in the near future?
Great. Absolutely. When speaking with leaders at major industrial organizations, I would say three main concerns consistently emerge: visibility, legacy systems, and coordinated incident response. The first concern, visibility, many leaders express frustration over the lack of real-time visibility into their OT environments. It's one thing to have visibility on paper, but the reality is that most organizations struggle to monitor their industrial networks with the same level of visibility and control they have at their IT environments. So this gap leaves them exposed to threats that could be lurking in their blind spots. Regarding legacy system integration, OT environments are often powered by legacy systems, running with legacy operating systems that were never designed with cybersecurity in mind. And these systems are deeply embedded into critical processes. So making upgrades, even patching these systems is challenging and expensive. There's never a good time to stop. There's never a good time to upgrade, never a good time to install a patch. So the dilemma many leaders face is balancing the modernization with maintaining uptime and safety. And the third concern I mentioned, how to coordinate incident response. When incidents do happen, the lack of synchronized response between IT and OT teams can actually amplify the operational impact. IT wants to do investigation and forensics. OT wants to get back to full operation immediately. So we have seen leaders that are now focusing on cross-functional incident response that kind of bridges the gap between what used to be siloed groups. These are the three main concerns I hear from leaders.
Okay, so that's pretty it pretty much aligns with the type of things that we hear also from our clients in this space. So it's interesting. Let's talk a minute about what resilience actually looks like. And I guess it's a term that is now bandied around, will most likely get banned at some point in future future conferences, like the S word that we're not allowed to use. But it's a term now that we hear everywhere. But in the real world, especially particularly on the plant floor, cyber resilience, it can be tough to sort of pin down as a concept or something practical. And it's clearly a lot. It's clearly about much more than just a firewall here or backups there. So I guess at Take Point, we really see it being about the ability to operate through the disruption, right? Adapt quickly and recover without that sort of lasting impact or minimizing the blast zone or the area of impact, and obviously minimizing the value at risk. So we know resilience requires strategy, planning, and coordination across all the teams. We've spoken a lot about the people aspect so far today as well, but there seems to be a lot of debate around, excuse me, a lot of debate around what it really means in practice and who should be leading the charge. So when we talk about becoming more resilient in an organization or a more resilient organization, what does it actually look like in the environments that we're talking about, the ones that you work with?
Yeah. Resilience, practically speaking, means an organization that can quickly recover, and continue to operate effectively and safely, even when its digital or physical infrastructure is under attack. So it's not just about preventing attacks, but also being able to absorb, recover, adapt. This involves proactive threat detection and robust incident response plans that are in place. Strategically, I advise companies to adopt a layered approach, assume that breaches will happen, and build layers of defense and response accordingly. This means segmenting critical OT networks, implementing zero trust policies, maintaining comprehensive visibility into all their IT and OT assets, and ensuring there is a real-time recovery plan ready to be activated. Now, you ask about responsibility in the organization. I think it's broader than just a CISO. While the CISO should spearhead cybersecurity strategies, full resilience requires cross-functional collaboration. The plant managers, the site managers, the IT department, the OT department, operation, engineering, HR, finance, the leadership team as a whole needs to understand and prioritize resilience as a fundamental part of risk management and fundamental part of their business continuity plan. That's how I see that.
Okay, that makes sense. Again, all right, let's shift gears again. Let's talk about, again, one of these topics that I think will keep coming up, and Clint just covered in his session as well. So we're going to talk about the big AI, because no cybersecurity conversation in 2025 would be complete without it. So we're seeing manufacturers embrace AI across a range of use cases. In fact, we did a survey. It wasn't just manufacturers, but OT environments middle of, I think it was late last year, and the results were quite interesting. And I think that one particular question was, do you think the risks, sorry, the rewards outweigh the risks? And I think it was like 90% of people said the risks outweigh the rewards outweigh the risks, which was interesting and scary at the same time. But we're seeing AI being embraced across lots of different use cases, not just cybersecurity, obviously operations, maintenance, analytics, and cybersecurity is definitely part of that mix. But we're also seeing rising concerns about how attackers are using AI as well. They can use it to scale and automate and definitely sharpen their attacks, especially in ransomware style. In fact, I spoke to my father earlier. He told me his bank account was just hacked today. And I've noticed that I've been starting to get some new phishing in my own inbox on a daily basis, where it now comes in as a meeting request, and you can't actually click the button that says this is spam. So anyway, there's a lot of excitement, but there's a lot of uncertainty as well. And I think that the leaders here, participants want to know, where does AI actually help them reduce cyber risk? And also, where might you be introducing new risks that may not have been fully accounted when you adopt that sort of, as in all new technology, in this case, AI. So from your perspective, Amit, how is AI starting to shape the cybersecurity landscape in manufacturing? And I guess also, if you can touch on the sort of key developments that industrial leaders should be paying attention to now, that would be fantastic.
Right. You're right. We cannot have a conversation about manufacturers and cyber without mentioning the AI factor. Yeah, you're right about that. Artificial intelligence is revolutionizing manufacturing in so many areas. You've got predictive maintenance. You've got digital twins, supply chain optimization, to name a few. On the predictive maintenance, for example, that enables real-time monitoring of any machinery and equipment health, and really allowing companies to predict and prevent failures before they happen, saves a lot of money. digital twins create virtual models of physical systems, and then you can optimize the process, you spot inefficiencies without ever disrupting the live operations. So these are all critical impact and very positive impact of AI and automation in the industry. And I think manufacturers should closely monitor advancement in topic name AI-driven anomaly detection. This allows them to instantly flag any irregular behavior in their OT networks, so they can build a complete system. So for example, they take AI-driven anomaly detection and connect that with autonomous response system, also AI-driven. And then they have a set of a complete system that automatically isolate threats before they spread. And the combination of the technologies not only enhance efficiency, but also harden security postures against increasingly sophisticated cyber threats that are coming based on this AI-driven cybersecurity threats.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely a brave new world out there, and I think from sort of the way we look at it, what's critical is whenever you're looking and introducing or dealing with shadow, I don't know if it's called shadow AI now, or how what the term is evolving, but it's critical to understand the risks. I think we've left behind the days where cybersecurity, whether you're on the IT, OT, or whatever side, has stopped becoming the department of no and unplug it to facilitating the business, particularly in manufacturing, right? We're part of the cog in this environment. The whole reason that we're here is to manufacture something, provide something to customers. And so it's about innovation. It's all about, we saw in the opening keynote, it's industry 200 years, and then that exponential acceleration into industry 4, industry 5, and whatever's beyond that. And everything's about innovation, and AI is just another one of the latest things. But what's incredibly important is to understand the risks that are introduced. It doesn't mean that you say don't do it. You understand the risks and plan to manage those risks, and mitigate them, or accept them or transfer them, etc. So let's move on. Let's bring this sort of the attention to, I guess, talking about response strategy, because when things go wrong, that's really what matters most, and we do our utmost to do the protect, detect, and prevent. But when things do happen, and we've sort of seen the data in the field, there's still big gaps between expectations and reality when it comes to response, right? Most manufacturers want that fast recovery, but few have actually positioned themselves to deliver. And in our earlier panel, I think it was Chris that talked about the recovery, making sure your backups are immutable, and testing and things like that. So especially in OT environments where the sort of traditional IT centric and sort of like recovery tools often fall short or don't meet the requirements. So recovery of critical assets like PLCs and the HMIs and the MESs and the ERPs and the engineering workstations, that the response or recovery can sometimes take days or weeks, or in a ransomware scenario, that's just not sustainable. A business can go out of business in that sort of time frame. So given how fast moving and sophisticated, or not necessarily sophisticated, there can be very non-sophisticated ransomware threats that can still have a massive impact. So what strategic recommendations, I guess, for the audience here, what would you offer to help manufacturers stay ahead? What sort of advice, especially when it comes not to that detection part, but really to operationally viable recovery, right? How to actually start producing and feel comfortable about moving forward. A lot of times we see in the press release, OT systems, production systems taken online for and abundance of caution. I think it's what we are normally find, which is obviously legal speak for we're not sure what happens, so we're taking it offline. So yeah, what sort of advice would you give there?
So you're right. It's clear that AI presence in manufacturing will only develop and grow, and you're correct. It also means that cyber threats become more sophisticated. To stay ahead, manufacturers should and are adopting a proactive mindset towards threat detection and towards response. And this includes zero trust architectures. And this includes network segmentations and best practices like continuous monitoring and threat hunting. And also practicing incident response drills, running regular simulation, reflecting real-world attack scenarios to check if we are ready and how can we stress test our defenses. And I believe that OT system resilience and backup strategies are critical and they have to be in place. And I'll explain why. AI is upgrading the race between attackers and defenders. Attackers use it to craft more clever and evasive attacks, and defenders will try to catch up and get ahead of attackers with better and versatile prevention and detection methodologies. So I think it means that there will be many more new threats and many more 0 days. And it means that defending OT environments will have to include proper, automated, comprehensive backup and recovery platforms, specifically dedicated to the needs of and the restrictions and the OS of OT and ICS. And all that is so downtime can be shortened and the impact could be minimized. And the bottom line is that resilience is no longer a technical challenge. It's a business imperative. And forward-looking organizations are asking us not just how can we stop an attack, but how fast can we recover and resume operation.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I think that point really needs to be highlighting, and I think that's something that we've heard already during some of the sessions today. I think it will keep coming up as we see this maturity in the industry. When we started tracking the industry, say, well, 8 or 9, almost 10 years ago, was very much focused on the lower levels of production and very focused on the OT tech. And I think discussions now have evolved to include, well, not sort of moved on, but it gets to be a broader discussion when you look at the top-down risk right from the boardroom. When people understand that we're all in this company to create value for a customer, right? What regardless of what we produce, whether it's batteries for cars or baby formula, we all have this value that's being created, and that's the value at risk, and that's how the board and management look at it, right? Where is that value created? Which production lines? Which sort of equipment? And then it sort of goes from the top down to the bottom, and engineers tend to look bottom up, and I guess we come in the middle somewhere looking at the cybersecurity of those different environments. But it's that ability to step back and understand you're actually all trying to protect the value in the organization and keep the products and these critical services and products getting to the customer. So you can stop that by shutting down the billing or the delivery or the ERP system, for example, the MES system. It's not always just the OT. It's not the PLCs or the DS, the MES or it doesn't have to be just that sort of equipment. So it's not always an OT or IT discussion, but it's a question now of that resilience, because the resilience creates that value down to the production floor. So at least that's kind of how we see it. We have a couple of minutes left. We have some questions that have come through Um,
Jonathan, I see these questions are so to the point, are so really, really accurate to the pains of the industry. There is something here that just jumping out.
yeah, sure.
The one of the questions was, and I'll say it. Many OT environments still rely on legacy systems that aren't easily patched or replaced. How do you approach recovery and backup for end-of-life system without introducing additional operational risk?
Mhm.
This is great. This is
Yeah.
actually a pain we see even with really modern clients and companies we work with. We see that there's always a legacy system. There's always something that is based on an older OS, and there's a lot of risk and hesitation about patching it, about updating it. And that's really a pain point and that we see in all clients. And the approach we take, we recommend here is actually making a local clone of the system for a backup and recovery utility, which is quite different. We treat these as critical assets, and we make a local backup and recovery complete system for these critical assets, definitely for legacy systems that are in critical positions. I think it's a great question, and we see it in most deployments.
Yeah, I think it is a great question. It's a question that obviously comes up all the time, and I think it's important to point out that often you come to these events and people talk about OT, or they talk about control systems, and then they in this particular one focus on manufacturing, which is again is a level down, so we can sort of focus. But again, manufacturing is enormous, right? There are many, many different types of manufacturing. And I think also someone on the panel rightly said that even different plants within your organization can be at a different level of maturity, but can also have completely different equipment if your company acquired a number of sites from during an acquisition, etc. So it's incredibly complex, and there's always you always get to the answer, well, it depends, because then you have to drill down and drill down further. But I think this particular challenge um, uh, we see almost everywhere. We're all, let's say, struggling, but the reality is in these environments that it's not a common secret equipment that's 20, 30 years old, etc., and still humming along and seeing out of date sort of Windows um, on different workstations and within the environment. Not to mention the older control systems that again might be end of life, cannot simply just not be taken out of service to be patched at all. And again, the engineers the operations guys will look at you crazy, because any sort of patch for an existing system from their point of view is introducing a new risk, which we're all trying to prevent. So it's always kind of, I guess, a dancing or a balancing act, etc. I think we have time for one last question. And there was a question also that stood out really for me, because again, it sort of connects that top down to the bottom up, which I think from our point of view, they're both required and you meet somewhere in the middle. So the question is, how do you recommend aligning incident response and recovery planning with a broader business continuity plan? And again, this is probably a topic for an entire conference or another webinar for sure. But the part of the question really gets me: should recovery be treated as part of the enterprise risk management rather than just a security issue? Which I think is a fantastic question.
Yeah, I agree with the recommendation here. I totally see recovery as a part of a more comprehensive BCP, business continuity plan, definitely part of the enterprise risk management plan, and not just a security issue. I referred to it earlier. I do think that the CISO should spearhead that effort as part of the cybersecurity strategy that they are leading. But as I mentioned earlier, if you want to achieve full resilience It's a cross-functional collaboration of all function management across the organization, and they also need to prioritize resilience as an important part of the total enterprise risk management and business continuity plan. So I definitely agree with the recommendation here inside the question.
Yeah, it was kind of like a question and a recommendation, but I think that's a great answer, and I think that's a great point to end the session on. So Amit, thank you very much for sharing your insights and what you're seeing in the field. And particular thanks to the attendees and the folks that put the questions there. They were very good questions. And the ones that we didn't get to, we can get to offline as well. So we are actually going to head out for a 20-minute break before we reconvene at 2 p.m. Eastern for our next expert panel, which is actually going to be on ransomware. So grab a coffee, grab a bite to eat, go for a quick jog if that's what gets you recharged for the afternoon sessions. And in the meantime, we encourage you all to go out to the lobby, have a look around, check out the expo floor, and Amit and his team will be out there in one of the booths on the expo floor as well. If you have any more questions or you'd like some more insights, feel free to join them out there. So again, thank you very much. We'll see you all back at 2 sharp on the dot. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you everyone who joined us today. Thank you.
Bye.